It's not Erica just pulled up.
Okay. Tom's online.
I'm here as well.
Jack's online. Hey,
Hey,
you
everybody.
told me you're gonna be in person.
I was just gonna say, didn't you say in person?
I said in person. I have house guests coming in, so I
Okay.
can stay this way. So
Okay. Well,
is it just you and Melody?
So far.
yeah, you and Rob said you would be in person, and so I posted it for in person.
I can.
You're fine. You don't need to come in. It's okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
That
Rich
wasn't-
is.
It's not the full table setup.
Yeah, at least we don't make them do like the semicircle. But yeah, Rich is not going to be here. Erica pulled up. Melody said, and then Ty will not be here. Patricia, I don't think will be here. Rab said he was coming.
You said John was gonna make it as well, right?
Yes. We'll see if he actually
I
All right.
didn't think he was.
makes it. Yeah, he might not, but he told me he was going to, like when I asked him earlier this week.
Okay, so then Erica gets here about before.
Mhm.
I thought that was right.
She did say she was going to try and be in person. Hi. Are you here for the SAB meeting? Oh, great. I'm Cass. Nice to meet you too. Oh,
Okay.
awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was just after last meeting. They usually come, they didn't come last time.
Mm, gotcha.
One more person.
Okay. Short of a quorum.
Yep, one short.
For the meeting minutes, who is at the far end of the table? I can't see. I guess
Oh.
that's
Sorry, what was your name again?
Haven.
Haven, from the Mountaineer.
okay, awesome.
I think Rob is coming in. And Erica. Okay, awesome. We got 2 more.
Great.
It's okay. Glad you made it.
Me too.
And thanks for being in person too. Appreciate it.
Yes. Where's that? Where's everyone else? Jack is online. That's all we got.
And Tom.
Oh, and Tom.
And Tom,
Tom said he's traveling and he has bad Wi-Fi at his hotel, so he'll be off camera.
No problem.
I can hear you all though. Hopefully you can hear me.
We
Here you
can,
go.
yes. Loud and clear. All right, so we will call the meeting to order at 6:53 PM. The first thing on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
And is there a second?
I'll second. Thank you, ChatGPT.
Woo! And I'll call a vote. Jack,
I
Jeff,
Aye.
Erica?
For the minutes,
Yes.
I have not reviewed them. I'm gonna
Abstain. Okay,
abstain.
I vote yes, and Tom,
Yes.
minutes are approved.
Just a quick question on that. How detailed are folks reading those notes? Because sometimes transcription can end up with something that you don't intend, when you're using AI.
Mm-hmm.
I read through it after I had it pull it together from the transcript. Yeah.
I did notice, I'm not part of the vote, but I noticed one thing in the minutes that I think was just transcription. But I think it might have said like John Thompson or something when I believe it was referring to John Kane, because John was there. And I think they just put in the wrong last name. I'm not really sure how that happened though, and how I wasn't sure if the AI was picking up on the names or if you were like inserting the names afterwards. I assume it was the AI.
Yeah, it should. One thing it has a challenge with is everyone on the owl is one voice, so it can't necessarily ID who it is.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking was why it had it's just like heard it wrong or something.
That's a good question. I like to go through them just because, if somebody else is taking minutes and just if there's something that's incorrect, it does become record.
Great.
Yeah.
Yep.
And in the past, the board had done them in like batches. It's probably better practice to do them after every meeting and stay up with them. but it's also not hard to like just push it to the next meeting.
Yep.
So, if that's helpful.
And I think for clarification, we should all kind of read through and that's why we approve that, basically, is we're all saying, yes, I've read them. Yes, I approve of them. So please do read them, go through them, make sure you're not attributed something that you didn't say. That's important too. Okay, so minutes approved with that one edit of that was referring to John Kane, not John Thompson.
Yep, and I made that change.
Right, moving on. We'll start with subcommittee updates. So zero waste subcommittee.
Yeah, so last meeting, it was a small group of us and Rich, who isn't here anyway, was not present, but like he'll typically be giving these updates during the meetings. So we talked about town cleanup day, which I will talk about a bit more in my staff update later. But essentially we will have compost there from basically from like our biosolids from the wastewater treatment plant are taken down to A1 organics, and then that is turned into class 1 compost. And then we get like a certain amount, like a dump truck load or something every, I don't know if it's like every 2 months or something like that. But we have a bunch of that compost. And so we'll have that at town cleanup, and it'll just be free for residents to take. So I've been doing a bit of outreach on that, making sure people know, like, bring your own bin to collect the compost, making sure they know it's at town cleanup. And we have like a banner for it, and we'll have like just like more info about A1 and what you can use the compost for, which, like, in case people don't know, you know, which like a lot of people already know, but
Clarification, like, you don't want to put biosolids material on food garden.
right,
Right.
yeah. So Andrew, the utilities director manager, he told me that A1 said that class 1 compost you can technically use in a vegetable garden, but he personally would not. And so he would rather we not advertise it for vegetable gardens, because like the thought of like biosolids from wastewater like being in your vegetable garden is like, yeah, it seems like it's probably not ideal.
Do you have the history on it? Was it pasteurized or was it just composted in order to?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I do have more information. If you go to their website, which I can forward you the link when I find it, it's their like biocomp stuff. So if you like search A1 Organics biocomp, they have like their description of how it's made and what you can use it for, and they do include vegetable gardens. Yeah, I know that just like Andrew was saying that he would rather we not advertise that as a use.
You probably want to specifically like advertise that it's not good,
Yeah,
just to be clear, because people are gonna not know the difference. And
Mhm.
also with the transfer station about to produce its own compost, which should be a vegetable garden.
yeah, that should be. Mhm.
It would just be, I think it would be good to start communicating from the start, like, not all compost is equal. This one does have biosolids. It's
Mhm.
totally safe in theory, but we recommend you don't use it for vegetable gardens. When you
Yeah.
have the transportation compost, we do recommend that for gardens. Just
Right.
because it would just be awful to have that blow up before
Right.
transportation compost is ever available, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I can include that on the like brochure that I'm making of just like that we're like hoping to give a brochure with everyone who takes compost. So I can definitely include that in there, just saying we recommend do not use this on vegetable gardens. And then just whoever is helping with that process can also like specifically tell people that as well. Yeah.
One other thing, We just met with A1 Organics.
Mhm.
Marketing guy.
Okay, I don't know him.
I just met him, but he was saying that they're really, really, really trying to get folks to communicate organics recycling as the process
And
and
not-
not compost as the end result.
Right.
The-
Organics recycling. Yeah, I know that people can get confused by that, and most people will just be like compost, and you're like collecting compost, but you're not actually. It's yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's
Definitely.
helpful for anyone.
No, definitely, it's very helpful.
What's the difference?
One is the process and one is the end result.
Oh, okay, appreciate
So
it.
compost is the end result product that you put in your garden. Organic recycling is like your materials you take to the transfer station. That's organics
Mhm.
recycling.
Input
But
output.
it's-
Got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
You taking photos?
Yeah. Sorry, I have to put them in the paper.
She's with the Mountaineer.
Information.
Oh,
Yeah, so it looks like it's been tested by batch. This A1,
Mhm.
blend, whatever that
But it doesn't directly say food safe.
does not.
No, they do have a
It says
like,
Class 1 compost, which I always understood to be non-agricultural, but I could be wrong.
they have like a, I guess like data sheet, product information and such, and
Yep. I
I've-
see it,
yeah, I know that.
but it just says gardens. It doesn't say,
Yeah,
it shows a picture of it.
I think that might be the misleading part, is that they show the vegetables. And I think Andrew talked with someone and they were like, yeah, vegetable gardens. And yeah, I think that it's not super clear that this is safe specifically for that. So like we should definitely, yeah, stay away from that, especially like you said, with the composting unit coming online.
When are town clean days?
So the one that we have each year is the first Saturday of June, so it's gonna be on June 7th this year. It's at the transfer station, the Nederland transfer station. I can give you the address if you'd like. Okay, I believe it's 236 Ridge Road.
I might wanna, it's at the town shop. Right?
I thought well, it's like kind of like the whole area, but if you type in 236 Ridge Road, like you
Well,
turn
yeah.
in the right. Yeah, yeah, it takes you to the transfer station and like the whole operation is
Yeah.
there.
It's just sometimes the transfer station gets overwhelmed with that stuff,
Okay.
so you try to keep it separate.
Oh,
because
okay.
The traffic line is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I figured like Nikki said that they have volunteers like directing people.
Yeah, usually the volunteers are like running the line of
Yeah.
traffic and then at that gate for the town shop. So like past the transfer station,
Okay.
sometimes the transfer station will get, yeah, I mean, you guys have experience with this, like. Transfer stations sometimes will like fill up and they can't take anything else, because it gets kind of weird if
It-
bins fill up for the cleanup day.
Mhm.
Because the transfer station doesn't have the capacity necessarily for everything. So there's been some like, oh, we can't take any more than this from the transfer station. at times.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not remembering exact examples, but. So I think just to clarify, like I would say the Netherland Town shop,
Yeah.
I think that's happened every year for the last few years, right? That just the transfer station fills up on cleanup day. And they just turn people around.
Well, and the whole cleanup day fills up by
Yeah.
11.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the part that I had heard. I didn't know the transfer station also filled up, but that makes
It
sense.
depends on, so basically if there's things. If people have mostly trash and not things that are recyclable, then the transfer station will fill up.
Okay.
But like if what we've got is a bunch of tires, they can stack the tires off to the side, take them down in a container later.
Mhm.
You know, that doesn't necessarily fill up the bins, but if we got like 20 nasty couches that all need to go to a dumpster, that's.
Right, right. Okay.
Are the town cleanup day and the compost day different?
No, so the compost thing is new. I'm not sure when we started like taking our biosolids down to A1 Organics. But I think this is only like the second dump truck load that we've gotten of compost from them. And so we just decided to offer it to the community for free, and decided that like a good day to do that would be cleanup day, since a bunch of people are already like gonna be there.
It's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. They clean out their stuff and then they get compost. Yeah. Awesome. And we can talk more about that. Because in my staff report, I wanted to just ask about volunteers. But the other main thing that we talked about at the Zero Waste Subcommittee was we had a presentation from Dave Quo, who wanted to present to us on biodigesters. So his company like has this biodigester unit that he basically wanted to run by us and be like, is there anywhere up in Nederland do you think this would work? And I'm like, it's like very commercial scale, you know, like he said that they use them in like commercial kitchens and you need like a grease trap and everything. So because what the biodigester does is like it takes the food and turns it into gray water essentially. And so you need a grease trap because that water is going into the like through the pipes, and there's a lot of, you know, like meat and such. So the grease, there's like a good amount of grease in there too. I don't think he was really trying to like sell us on it. I think he was just like trying to get the word out up here. And I connected him with Eldora because they have, you know, commercial kitchen. And I like mentioned a couple other places that like might be interested, but like I'm not trying to be a salesperson for him, so I didn't really take it anywhere else. But we did ask him a lot of questions about it because it was interesting technology. And it was interesting because it does take like less electricity than like some other technologies might, just because it's using like less power compared to other technologies. But like they're, you know, the smallest one that's 15 kilos is about $10,000 at least. And so, you know, it's definitely like a hefty investment, and most places that are taking them are like hotels, airports. We had like a whole list. They're at like Disneyland, military bases, prisons, stadiums, you know, those sorts of things. And I said, yeah, we don't really have as big of complexes as those up here.
No, I think the biggest kitchens that I would think of is schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they do a lot of compost. I know BVSD already does a lot of composting.
And he said,
Breweries probably also have a lot of waste grain. Doesn't end up somewhere.
They think they will both actually sell it as feed.
Well, I
Yeah.
pick up feed from Busey, but I think
I
what I
know
don't,
not every-
what doesn't get picked up ends up in the dumpster at Busey.
Do you-
I know not
for-
a group does that, and I think Very Nice does too.
But yeah, I agree that we probably don't have enough waste generation.
yeah, and I did mention Boulder Valley School District, and he said that he had been in touch, so I wasn't really sure who else to, you know, reach out to, but figured, you know, if anyone here had an idea for someone who might benefit from that, someplace that might benefit, I might as well, yeah, like pass it along.
Wait, I'm just a little confused. So he has the system ready and he wants it just for free.
No, not for free. He wanted to run it by the Zero Waste Subcommittee to see if it would make sense up in Nederland, like if there is a market for it. And we were basically like, there's like, you know, Eldora, and I don't know if there's like a whole lot else in terms of like trying to get it at like hotel chains or something. Like we're a small town. So he's just doing presentations, I think, to a lot of places.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then like what I'm reading is it's an anaerobic
Mhm.
environment. So like a landfill.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do they capture the various gases? And what's the process? Like what's his proposal with that?
Yeah, he said that it's actually aerobic digestion, not anaerobic. and that it started on cruise ships. Let's see what else. He said that because it's aerobic, the food like is based, yeah, it's like digested, and it's almost like it's eating the food. He didn't really get into too much detail other than just like they put probiotics in there. And it takes about 24 hours to turn like 1 ton of waste and digest it into gray water.
What's the company?
You know what? I, for some reason, don't have the name written down right here, but I think it's probably in my emails.
I just talked to somebody from Renewable. And I'm actually like going to get a loaner to try it. It's like an
Okay.
in-house biodigester then, or hit this definition.
Okay.
And the guys I've spoken with like talked about using like larger scale operations for like apartment buildings.
Mhm.
Yeah, right, as far as like compost.
It's called Power Knot.
Power not.
Power and then KNOT. Yeah. Um.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wait, what is it?
Power and then knot. KNOT, and they're 2 words.
I didn't say that are big. Oh, free metro.
Yeah, they said they have like 1 unit in Colorado so far, I think.
I don't know if this is appropriate for Netherlands. I think Eldora would be interested, maybe connecting Hunter.
Yeah, so I did connect them.
Okay.
Or I gave the information and everything, so we'll see if they follow up. But yeah.
I don't know about you all, like, I think that this is the way we're going. Like having like building specific larger
Mhm.
digesters.
He did mention that it takes a lot of water, which for Colorado especially is a little tricky, like if this was being put in like the Northwest or Northeast, where water is much more abundant, like I think it makes a lot of sense, but like I could see that being an issue in like especially the Western slope. Yeah.
It's transforming like caloric food into gray water, and it is water intensive.
Yes.
That seems rough.
Yeah.
I can understand why.
Presumably also compost or some other output. That's a solid,
Yeah, I mean,
Presumably.
you know,
That's
conservation.
what I'm trying to
some
find,
everything.
figure out too.
It's gotta be water, CO2, and then some type of solid.
Yeah.
It says
No, there are
microorganisms.
no remaining solids to be emptied from the machine.
Weird. Cause like
I mean,
the
There's gotta be some
indigestible
solids.
cellulose, there has to be some solids.
Yeah, there's
So
gotta be.
the Renewable company I just recently learned about, like, they create a compost product that you can like put on your garden. And depending on how long you want it to process in your kitchen or in your apartment building, like you then can decide if it goes directly on your potted plants or if it like cures for 48 hours or something. Yeah, I don't know about the water. That's a good point, Jack.
um,
Is there an action item on this for the board or for the SAB?
No.
Is there a request or what do they want from us?
Nope, they just wanted to present and get the zero waste subcommittee's feedback. Yeah, so we kept it to a presentation and
Microbes eat it.
yeah.
There's nothing left after they eat it. That's what they're.
Okay. I mean, breaking down cellulose in 24 hours is a tall order, but maybe if they're putting lots of that prebiotic in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But if anyone wants to get in touch with him, then I have his contact info. For the transfer station, the composting unit is up, as we kind of mentioned, so that is working, and now you put your compost in the bin next to the unit instead of in the big dumpster that they had. Mikkel from Boulder County is scheduling a ribbon cutting, and SAB will be invited to that along with a number of other local partners, including the Mountaineer, it sounded like. I'm not sure when that's happening because I know Mikkel is going to be out of town at a conference, and so I think they're trying to like work around that schedule. Let's see. Mikkel looked into tracking contamination for Nederland specifically, and the answer I got was that they couldn't really find anything definitive in terms of like contamination rates for Nederland specifically. It was they had like 12% basic like general contamination rate across Boulder County. Let's see.
12%.
Yes. And then with the C3 grant, so the update on the trash cans, which we're not using the grant for anymore, but that's where it started. The NDDA has approved the purchase of 2 new trash bins for First Street. And so I've been working with Nikki and Kate from the NDDA on getting that put in. It sounds like there might be a delay on one of them just because the TIPS project is going to have sidewalks being put in. And we can't like we don't want to put the trash can in and then have to rip up, where it is if it's in the way of the sidewalks and all that. So we're going to put one in storage until that project is done. For the C3 grant, now we're kind of leaning towards restaurant composting. And for this item, I am planning on doing like a feasibility study for like budget, plus like figuring out how many restaurants would be interested in composting, how much food they would be, contributing per day, per week, where we could put like a collection bin, what we would need for it to be bear proof. The town has like a dump truck we could use to like bring it up to the transfer station, but I will need to talk with the transfer station to figure out like how much food waste they will accept and if they have any restrictions on like content of that, because like food from restaurants can be sometimes more meat heavy than just from like your personal kitchen, which might be more like vegetable scraps. So all of those things I still need to figure out, but that's kind of like the next step in that grant. And otherwise I haven't really done anything, but probably going to reach out to C3 and ask for like their free technical assistance because they offer that.
Do you have any like restaurants or partners you want to target first?
So probably the restaurants in the shopping plaza. I was told to ask B&F or, the market, about if they would be interested, but I'm, that's going to be a ton of food that they're contributing, I'm guessing. And so we have to kind of decide, like, will we allow food businesses or do we just want to allow restaurants? And do we need to limit the amount of food that they can, give us and that sort of thing too? But I know the train cars, I'm not sure the person there, but talked to someone on the zero waste subcommittee, and that's kind of how this got brought up again, was like, yeah.
I know Crosscut has been interested in the past. It was a hauling issue for them.
Okay.
And they also in the past have like already collected food that was available for like animals, to go for like feed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're still doing that. This was like a few years ago, but they might be a good partner as well.
Okay.
I don't use the ones to be interested.
I would imagine that Sweet Sue's would be in that.
As far as capacity goes, we are taking our biosolids down to Piedmont, right? Is there a possibility there for us to take that restaurant compost down with that? I don't know if we wait till the dump truck is all the way full to do it or.
Yeah, so I'll have to talk to Andrew, because I know he runs that. But that's a good point, is like if, we can only take so much up to the transfer station, do we have capacity with that as well? Yeah. Awesome. And I will reach out to those the restaurants that you mentioned first, probably, if they seem the most enthusiastic. But trying to get an idea of like everybody in that.
Eldora compost, right? I wonder
think
if
so.
their compost tolerance.
I will, yeah,
That's
yeah, I will ask Hunter what they do. And hopefully by the next meeting, I'll have like a lot of this information to share.
So curious how Eldora manages contamination. But they have some ways doing that too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I know that like they do something that a lot of other resorts I've seen like take on where you put like all your trash, food, anything on these trays and then they sort it so you don't actually throw it away like when you're in their,
Yeah.
buildings. And so like they sort it and I'm sure that's how they manage the contamination because they're trained on it.
I've
That makes
definitely
sense.
seen their marketing and just trash out of the compost too.
Really? Wow.
Got a photo of that one.
There you go.
That's what it takes, that like dedication.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's everything from me for zero waste.
I have farmers market zero waste monitoring. Do we
Yes.
have volunteers that are signed up for that or?
Not yet because I just got confirmation from Kate at the farmers market who is leaving, so I'll have to coordinate with someone else, I think. But yeah, so I got confirmation from her to try and start recruiting volunteers. I am gonna go volunteer this weekend. I'm treating it as like I'm gonna be a volunteer. It's not my working time. And hopefully just like get an idea of like what it all entails and then on come back and then maybe have like some kind of volunteer training with the farmers market at our next like zero waste meeting and try and get people from that subcommittee to volunteer and also like recruit more people. Because I know that Kate mentioned that like Larry was the one who did it for a long time and I said it's great that he did that and it's super helpful that he stepped up, but I don't want to put it on one person because it's so much time
Yeah.
to like go every week. So
Yeah, we tried to have folks kind of rotate through
mhm,
and sign up, so creating a ship schedule or something.
great.
And then everybody on the zero waste committee and maybe some staff members that are interested can take one market.
Mhm.
And then we can cover at least most of them. I was at the last market at the end, and in the recycling bin, we had about 5 aluminum cans and a bunch of stuff that couldn't be recycled. And then a bunch of mixed stuff in the trash, so we were like, it's not even
Right.
worth it to dig through this, so it ended up all getting trashed.
Mhm.
I'm doing a carousel booth once a month, so I can't help every month, but I can help a few times.
Okay.
And I'm usually there at the end, helping out.
Mhm.
And then as far as whatever leadership transition happens over there, I can help with that too, because I know
Mhm.
them all, so.
Okay.
I think it'll probably be Jazz that you would move to, although I know they did finally get a new market manager, so I think they have someone
Okay.
ready.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think Kate mentioned someone in an email to me. But yeah, I will be sending out a kind of like sign up sheet once I get confirmation on like I guess who from their team wants to coordinate with me on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And one thing Larry did that I think is helpful
Mhm.
is when you first get to the market,
Mhm.
you kind of go to the vendors, especially like the hot food vendors, and you ask them for just one of all their disposable things. And then kind of display it above the trash can that it's supposed to go in. That kind of helps people. Because the signs don't always encompass what's physically there at the market.
Mhm. That's true. Okay. Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Anything else on zero waste? Any questions from staff members?
There's D3 has some like recycling reimbursement right now for 2024 operations. I'm sure Boulder County's looking at it. But I think with just the whole extended producer responsibility coming down the pike, I'm just thinking about how we're gonna communicate
Mhm.
that incentive or opportunity for residents. I think a lot of it's gonna be on the haulers,
Yeah,
and we don't pay for recycling at the transfer station now, but for those that do have curbside,
Yeah.
I think they're still figuring out the final details right now, but they should know in the next few months how it's gonna be rolled out.
Mhm.
It's a cool opportunity.
Yeah, definitely.
is Keep Magnolia Clean still going? I know Aaron moved away, but I know they sold it to somebody. I just don't know if that person's still going.
I don't know, I haven't seen anybody.
Cause that would be the one like recycle hauler that I might think maybe wouldn't know what's going on.
Yeah. It's like Bridget's gonna be able to know under the,
And Western is gonna know clearly,
yeah.
you know, so. Yeah. Okay,
I was just talking to somebody earlier today that wasn't aware of that, and they don't currently recycle as a business. And just thinking about how to set people up and to really understand, like, wow, you're saving, especially a business in town,
Mhm.
you're gonna save X amount on your recycling dumpster
Mhm.
starting this date. Could we get you going with compost collection, or can we how can we help you navigate that space?
Mhm.
I'm just more sharing that just because I think it's coming down the pike.
Mhm.
we will move on to the energy subcommittee and the 100% renewable energy statement.
Great. Yeah, so Rab and I put together a draft statement. We went over it with Melody, and it was included in or I guess circulated to y'all after the agenda packet. Have folks had a chance to review it yet?
I reviewed about half.
Okay. I think I can give a voiceover, but I think the goal is from this session to get feedback so we can do another revision and get something that SAB can approve, have staff polish into an aim, and then bring to the BOT. The structure in the document is some background and an update on how we have done on the 100% renewable by 2025, as well as a update to that target. So moving it back, as we discussed, to I'm sorry, I need to review the date we're moving it back to, because I got my wires crossed when Rab and I were talking about it. Yeah, so starting by pushing that date back to 2030, at which point Excel's energy mix should be 80% renewable, and that kind of puts us on track. The addition and kind of the majority of the document discusses putting goals in place for 24/7 renewable or carbon-free energy, which basically looks at matching the like time of use energy consumed in Netherlands to renewable resources. Yeah, go ahead, Rab.
Yeah, I just wanted to interject and maybe give a little bit more background. So I think, and we've talked about this before, but we were not on track to reach our renewable energy goal by 2025. So there was an interest in pushing that timeline back in order to provide us more time to do so. The document outlines some of the reasons why we were unable to reach those goals. But we are on track to exceed the existing goal by 2030, which is why it was selected. But that goal was always a net renewable goal. So there was an interest, in addition to pushing back the timeline of the existing goal, we wanted to bring forward something further along the net renewable. And basically what we've done is taken California's renewable energy consumption goal and copy pasted it in its structure at least to the town of Nederland. So the interest is in is in matching by, quite a long timeline out. I think that's 2045 that we eventually decided on, but this is, something we can discuss, of course. Time matching of generation and consumption, so that we're not just a net renewable community, but overall renewable energy consumption community. So I guess, so yeah, I just wanted to give that background and some of those definitions, and please take it away, Jack, because you're doing a great job.
No, that's great. And I think the other thing to cover is that the path to, like, if that's a goal we want to pursue, and if in parallel beneficial electrification is a goal we want to pursue, which is kind of the third point in this proposal, both of those need to be better defined with interim targets so that there's kind of an actionable path towards it. And that is kind of beyond the scope of an aim that we'd put together this year. And I think the goal would be to get consensus that that's a direction we want to go in, and it's worth pursuing, defining a path to get there, and what the intermediate goals would be. And so that's kind of the way this document is framed, or is intended to be framed, exactly. Rather. I can see some folks are in here doing edits, which is wonderful.
Jack, I had a couple of comments or questions. I guess the comment was, there's a reference in there to reflecting national leadership on this issue. I'm not sure that's still the case, given where we're at on renewables at the federal level.
Yeah, merging national and
just
state
an
leadership.
observation. I mean, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Maybe not do anything, but one of my questions, I guess, was this 20 to 30% increase in demand projection. I was confused by why that was chosen. Is there some evidence that does that tie to something in Netherlands' growth trajectory? That is it anchored in something that's town specific?
It's not town specific. That's a general load trajectory driven typically by EV adoption. Somewhat electrification, but predominantly it's distribution load from EVs. I don't think we have.
Yeah, part of the goal structure here is to better define that as well. And we don't currently have time of use data because Excel is still rolling out the time of use metering, which is something that residents might be aware of. But so as we get that data, we'll have more information, but I expect Nederland to actually be higher along on that curve because of electrification of heating than the rest of Colorado would be, on the whole, at least. Or at least compared to Denver. The heating loads are gonna, as the heating loads transfer to electrical, they're on par with vehicle electrification or EV consumption. So, yeah.
Does that make sense, Tom?
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering if there was any specific, document or something we could tie it to just explain why it was chosen. That was more, town relevant than a national standard.
You guys put in NREL, right? NREL 2022. In the document, it's cited.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not town specific is all.
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we double that projection number of 50% instead of 20 to 30%. Just because efficiency gains too, right? So the net carbon output would be lower, but it would be a higher load on the grid. Yeah.
And then another piece too is growth, right? This is also a business as usual projection for the town of Nederland, and who knows, right? Nederland is good at keeping new projects at bay, but I don't know for how long. And there's some big projects that have been proposed and that have been in the works for a few years now. Ron's project, Bobcat Ridge.
Yeah. So the other thing, so I'm gonna give me just 1 second here.
Those are also rooftops though, new rooftops.
From 2021 code, so still
That have all said absolutely yes to solar panels
There you go. Yeah.
already.
and building a solar
We're
park.
gonna hold them to those commitments.
Yeah.
One factor to keep in mind is the recommendation we're making on the, at least on the 100% renewable energy goal, which is the one that is relatively well defined, uses the 2017 baseline. That's the base scenario that we have been using to track so far. And so that load growth doesn't affect that that particular goal. It's something that like we'd want better information on as TOU meters roll out and we get better access. And that was actually something that Partners in Energy commented on as well, is that access to that time of use data and that matching, like there's just not very good data that's available to us at this time on that. And so when you look at stepping into that next push, you know, we're facing some uncertainty there.
So Jack's just something, not tied to that, but I see some narrative in here that like maintaining the rec-based, and I don't think that's accurate. We haven't actually had a rec-based target. We actually had additional.
I
Well,
think we're just talking about the accounting.
yeah, all of the documentation I have seen is anchored in rec-based accounting. So I think there may have been discussion and language around additionality, but like the thing that has been measured and the action plan that was put together by the Masters of Environmental, Master of the Environment at TU Boulder, which was as I understand it, was the action plan that the BOT test SAB with putting together, was entirely rec-based. It was based on a 2017 baseline.
And our current goal, I believe, is also rec-based, right, Jack?
Yeah, no, I think that's what we're all talking about, right? Is the current goal.
You're just saying that we're using recs to count from 0 to 100.
I need to go back and look because I don't think we ever formally adopted the MENB plan. And I think all the communication up until that point, even the document itself, the tracking sheet, there was a way so that we didn't double count, but we were adding community solar garden subscriptions as part of the pot.
Yep.
To meet our goal, and they're not rec-based.
Well, so they originally were, and then they shifted away from being rec-based. I think that's the history of that.
Which is kind of the parallel history of why, it is a possible parallel history of why it was very difficult to meet a rec-based target on the timeline that was originally specified, right? That's some of the market and policy uncertainty that we ran into over the last 7 years.
The concern is that if we're not using a rec basis, that and we're just using additionality, we could be double counting projects that are in town. So say somebody, put up the land or the money or a combination to put a project, and then the Excel retain those recs, and then their clean energy mix increased, we could be double counting that project.
So the initial Excel document from the MENB students, the capstone students, actually had like a percentage buffer. that was in that matrix. So I haven't looked at it in a while, but there was an intentional, like, we don't want to double count, here's our best guess. And we'll adjust in that document for that. I'm not disagreeing with you guys at all. I just think the narrative in here is telling me multiple places that it's maintaining a rec-based accounting, and it hasn't been a rec-based accounting. We're moving to that. I don't disagree, but I think the story has changed, and I think it's fair to call that out.
So
Yeah.
you would say that the spreadsheet is not accounting for recs?
The spreadsheet is accounting for both. So it's accounting for additionality, and it's counting, at least that's how it was initially designed in 2018 when it was given to us.
So the issue I have with that was reading through their document, they never explain that. So like
They
I
explicitly recommended accounting based on recs in their document.
so
like
if that was added afterwards, then fine, but that was never like in the documentation for it. And so like I had no idea of like knowing if that was the case or not. I think the other thing is that in the BOT resolution originally, it says renewable energy, and because of the like legal aspects of that, like we have to use recs or we have to come up with like a method. And if MEMV team really did come up with a method to have that like percentage buffer, that's great, but like that would mean that we'd have to change the language in our resolution, which would be part of like this conversation is updating like the goal to 2030. Like part of that conversation last time was like, should we change the language as well? But like because we're on track to meet the 100% renewable energy by 2030, I think the idea was like through recs, I think the idea was to like not update that language and like still consider the like the rec definition as like our goal definition as well.
I don't disagree. I think my problem is that the historical has been not a rec-based accounting. And I think this document is saying the opposite. And having been in those conversations, having brought this goal to the BOT, like that was the intention and like very explicitly discussed. So I think it's worth calling out the transition. Like now the town is based in recs. I don't think you can say that it was always, because even the Masters of the Environment capstone project, like that information was given to us. We just started moving forward. It wasn't like we adopted formally what they recommended.
Correct.
It's like
And the BOT never directed us to come up with this plan. We found the capstone group, came up with the plan and said, hey, BOT, here's what we got. So
the original resolution tasks SAB with creating an action plan. That was in the original resolution.
we never adopted one.
all right.
So they never officially adopted one. They did task SAB with that. Didn't get officially adopted.
So
Didn't officially adopt the additionality, but that was part of the conversations. So I think
I think speaking about going forward here, it would be my recommendation and my opinion that going with a rec-based format in the future would be best. Regardless of what has or has not been adopted in the past.
Yeah.
Something new is on the table, and I think that if that something new is in place, it should be rec-based. Just my opinion.
I agree. And I think
Yeah.
part of the reason for that is because we will have 80% from Excel by 2030. So long as they hold to that. I just wanted to correct something. I am not sure about PI plans because those have been formally adopted, I think, by the BOT. So there may be some type of like action plan.
The energy
that have
action
been
plan?
Related to the 100% that have been adopted through PI.
that's a good point. And
So just to call that out. So I agree, like, look, rec-based makes sense moving forward and we can accomplish it by 2030. I think that makes a lot of sense. And it was the initial suggestion for the BOT.
But to your point, I think it's important to like keep the historical record accurate. And so like for me, like I feel like this whole time I've just been trying to understand the timeline of that, of when those conversations were happened and like what resulted from it. And then it sounds like things were agreed upon but not written down, which is kind of the case for a lot of things in this town I've noticed. And so like I think for me that was just like the struggle of what happened when.
Is is there somewhere we could look for a record of, like, I'm hearing that there wasn't a action plan adopted. Like, we have a action plan that I assumed had been adopted because it was what we referred to. And I've been here for a year, so but is there, like, would that be in meeting notes that we could go back to in the archive, or like,
To
would there be?
figure out what's been adopted, you mean?
Yeah, is there, like, if we wanted to anchor to, like, is there a way to clarify this in the record?
Theoretically, and I'm not guaranteeing that this is 100% update, but theoretically, the documents that are on the SAB webpage on the Town of Nederland site should be the SAB related resolutions and ordinances that have been passed.
Okay.
And so if there's not a clean action plan or the capstone plan listed on there as official documents, then I would say they never got passed.
Okay, we've got the only thing. Oh, no, it is there. The master environmental capstone final deliverable, which
I don't think they ever voted on the job. I think that was.
They did
Yeah,
have,
so
they
it's
did
even-
have the capstone group there though,
They
doing
did,
several different presentations.
but that was like part of their program.
part of
They
their
had to do that.
deliverable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
also when the program, like the program was pretty new. I think it started not too soon before this
2016,
capstone project. Yeah. So
okay.
Interesting.
But if it's been listed on the town website as a sustainability document policy for the last at least 3 or 4 years, then I would say it's official enough.
well, and I wonder about the minutes too, like,
Yeah.
cause you took minutes during that era and you took great notes.
Yeah, but we're talking about what the BOT has adopted for the town. We're not allowed to do that.
There should be BOT minutes, but it sounds like there's no recollection of that actually being officially adopted, like as an action and item.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it was just like, here's our presentation of the BOT.
But you think the Pi Energy Action Plan was officially adopted?
I would imagine they have.
I mean,
but-
it was an MOU we signed.
Yeah,
You signed an MOU, yeah.
cause there's energy action plans, there's the EV.
And
action
so then
plan.
we presented it to the BOT at the end.
So I'll
But I'm
send
not sure
that.
there was
but-
a formal adoption process.
There was like a resolution drafted for the Board of Trustees that passed that.
Okay, I can look into that.
But I'm wondering too, I'm just gonna say, like, as far as the minutes in the past, Jack, like, if you wanna go to historical record, like, so Dave Hachimunji, who now is retired from Boulder County, he was our liaison for years, and he would come to the meetings, and he was the one that really supported us with the additionality conversation, because Boulder was doing the exact same thing. And so
Yeah,
there might be some good minutes about that in the conversations.
I gotta be honest. I don't want to go through those minutes. I will if necessary, but I raised my hand because I think for the like, it seems like there's potentially a workaround by removing the historical reference to the accounting system and just moving it to a recommendation on, like, moving forward with Rex over the last like 4 years, last half decade, Rex have become the standard for accounting for this. And that's what we recommend. If we incorporated those changes, we might not have to go back and like dig through all of the meeting minutes to determine, like, whether, like, it's not clear that something was passed and affirmed. And so this could be the reaffirmation of, like, this is how we would like to approach this going forward. Does that sound inappropriate to folks?
I think the historical context is really important. And again, because the equity piece, like we could pay for Rex today. And I think that at the time, recs were the easiest option, but not equitable for Netherland residents. And the additional cost was a really big deal in that conversation. And so I'd almost like suggest I could write a quick paragraph about this conversation and about the intention and why it's transitioned to recs, which a big piece of that is Excel, right? Like if Excel didn't have such aggressive renewable energy adoption goals, this would be a very different conversation because we would be sitting like where a lot of other communities are in the country. You know, we
Yeah.
have 50% gap we have to make up, right?
I think that paragraph and narrative is a really important missing piece to this. So I think doing that would be, yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Thanks for pulling this together. This is really great.
So I guess to keep us like on the timeline so that we go to the BOT and get what we need in time to start doing the energy action planning for 2045 with PI. What, Jack, do you think are the next steps with this document?
I think adding, removing the the baseline rec for historical as the historical precedent language, and adding the historical, adding a paragraph describing kind of the historical intent as well as the changes in market, which I might lean on Erica to at least put some draft language on that together. Those are the two obvious things for me. I think a general polish wouldn't be a bad thing. I think in the time that we have together, I would love to hear any other, is SAB on board with the gist of these recommendations as they stand, or are there other meaningful considerations that we should discuss before we try and polish this, pass it off to, well, I guess if we're passing it off to you, Cassidy, only so much polishing is necessary. But are there any other components? Do we think that this revise the renewable energy goal, add a 24/7 and a beneficial electrification goal to it, with the caveat that those need proper research to be defined? And so the goal of bringing those to the BOT is getting their consensus on whether that's something they're interested in pursuing, so that we can then flesh them out more. Those second two are I just don't think it's reasonable to they seem appropriate, impactful, and equitable, but they don't seem reasonable to just put a flag in the sand and say we can do this without fleshing out, okay, how are we going to get there? What are the scenarios that's going to look like, and how do we measure it? So yeah, that would be that's a long way of asking for major feedback on those goals beyond what we've talked about already.
My big feedback is for number 3, the 24/7 carbon free. I think, and maybe I just need more education, but I'm not quite clear on how we, as the town of Nederland, can have any sway or control over that. What are the potential roles that we could play in addressing that issue? Because I feel like really it's Excel and there's not really anybody else to address that issue.
So I
Yeah,
can
go
take a crack at it, Jack. Yeah. So I think that in as much as individuals can choose to put solar on the house, they can also choose energy storage. I think the town can also choose that. As Excel moves to time of use, there's going to be a peak period of expensive electricity that might support a market for energy storage and make it profitable to do that. We're talking about a time horizon of 20 years. So there's a lot of technology that's going to develop and come to market in that time that we can't probably foresee right now.
Mhm.
What I see as the biggest driver going into the future for residential consumption that would be kind of a no-brainer in terms of energy shifting is vehicle to grid. And we're seeing products come on the market for that this year because of UL certification for vehicle to grid and vehicle to home just got finished in Q1 of 25. So with those things, I could see that as people start choosing to purchase EVs instead of ICE cars, they may also choose to actively manage their power consumption. And that can be as cheap as, at the present moment, products I know coming on the market are a few $1,000s. And you can have storage to run your house for 3-ish days, just energy storage from a fully charged EV.
Okay.
So that's the immediate pathway, but again, 20-year horizon, it's hard to say if, and then I guess beyond the residential case, there's also like the town, if the town chooses to have an EV fleet. And then if they can do power shifting and remote net metering across the buildings with those EVs as well. But yeah, it is definitely a very interconnected issue by its nature.
Yeah, it's curious because I know like one of the things about the backup generator on this building that from a technological stance, I guess makes sense, but just kind of was new information for me is that when it loses power, or no, when the grid loses power, the generator has to be on for 3 minutes of gasoline before the backup electric generator actually kicks online.
Uh-huh.
So there's also this kind of gap, even if we do have these bigger storage systems, there's still those little gaps that we're gonna have to work out. And hopefully the market will, improve
Yeah,
that,
I
but
mean, I think that the bottom 50% is easy, and as you get closer and closer to 100%, it gets exponentially more difficult.
and really what
And
we're
I
talking
think
about is
defining that goal more explicitly will be helpful. But
storing to shift that load, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the
Yeah.
main thing.
yeah,
Okay.
but
there's
3 minutes out of 24 hours isn't all that bad, though. That's actually really good. I would go
Yeah.
for that today if we had that option.
Yeah, I was driving by as the power went out. And then I heard the gas generator kick on and I was like, isn't the gas generator the backup after the electric one dies? So I asked my mother-in-law about it. It's actually the gas one comes on first, then the electric one goes on. And then when that one runs out, the gas one goes back on.
Yes.
Jack, you were trying to say something.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like load shifting of existing devices. So the things that Rab mentioned are with there's a capital investment in all of them, which has its own implications, especially for equity. There's also like coordinated HVAC load shifting, other like demand responsive like technologies that are like consistently on the edge of applicability. The more we move to like time-based electricity pricing, the more sense those make. So that's those like helping folks to enroll in those programs would be a big focus of the push there. I would also, the other thing I would say about that
Time of
particular-
use is presently voluntary. Yeah.
What?
Sorry, I was just adding that time of use for Excel is presently voluntary.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can opt out, but they're still putting in the meter.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is like the early days of a 24/7 target would be like focused on not so much like percentage progress and more like how do we understand the system? Can we get appropriate measurement? It would be focused on like setting that baseline, understanding the system, and plotting the paths and making some progress towards it. Because it's like where we are right now, that space is emerging, right? It's a leadership space.
Okay, yeah. I'm just less excited about that one, I suppose.
And
Well-
mathematically, after 2030, it's very likely that we'll be above 100% net renewable.
Yeah.
And I think it starts to make sense to use a different framing for our progress as a community than, we're 150% net renewable. And yeah, moving the bar in terms of just, not just a consumption and generation equation, but also self-consuming or making sure that our consumption is of renewable source.
So as far as process wise, I'm curious, is this something we want to put on the agenda for our work session with the BOT? Rather than taking it as an information item to them first and trying to get an aim ready for a BOT meeting, do we want to get, some draft stuff ready for the work session? And then after that work session, we can really dial in an aim and go to a BOT meeting. It just depends.
We'd also talked about just taking the amendment as an action item. So amending the target from 2025 to 2030, getting an action item, getting that done, and then coming back with more information.
Yeah.
So that could be another option if we wanted to get that piece addressed and then talk about the rest in the work session.
I think we can, I don't know if this is too confusing, but maybe provide BOT options. Because I think it's pulling them apart, I think is easier from the perspective of just pushing the 2025 goal to 2030. I think everybody's just going to sign on to that. Putting something new in front of BOT is going to require discussion and engagement, like with a working session, and whether or not we want to package them or, it's maybe a political, political with quotation marks question, whether or not we want to try to put things together so that we kind of have a timeline on pushing our goals so that we don't miss it for 2025. I could see a 2045, 24/7 carbon-free energy goal getting kicked down the road quite a ways if it wasn't tied to anything else.
Yeah. And, there could be a reason to split them up and go and just amend the one from 25 to 2030 right now. But we're not to the end of 2025 yet. And I think optics wise, it would look better if we presented it and we had and this is what we're working on. This is why I think doing it together would be a better
Second,
use of our.
I don't disagree, but Jeff, just real quick, so I do think for a simplicity to create a resolution, bring it to the Board of Trustees, have them adopt it to transition to a 2030, you could give a little bit of context. But I see a lot of the additional stuff in this document being really tied into a beneficial electrification plan with Partners in Energy. Because they can do a lot of the work, they can evaluate a lot of the details and really come together with here's your baseline, here's what we recommend, here's realistic, here's not. As far as electrification, here's realistic as far as battery storage for you all, here's what we're seeing with other communities. So I wonder if kind of bringing the 2030 change and hey, this is what we're thinking. These are the pieces that are tied to it that would be part of this research that we would get through Partners in Energy support. I don't know if that resonates with folks, but just thinking from a simplicity, we're in this space a lot. We understand the definitions listed in this document. A lot of our trustees are going to be, this is going to be a lot of new stuff to them.
Yeah.
I think updating the renewable energy goal is simple. I think these other two things are kind of explicitly not simple. If we can present the three things together in a way that seems simple, that is change renewable energy and also this is what we're thinking. And I think this is what you were saying, Erica, is these two things are additional, they're complex, like we're going to work with partners in energy to define them and bring them back to you. Is that kind of what you were saying, is like bring them those 3 bullets with bullet 2 and 3, like we would like to like investigate this together and propose it. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Yeah, not exactly, but I like how you said it. I think I like what you said.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that
I also like
the
what you
best
said, but I
first
didn't,
place is the
like-
work session.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jack.
Oh, I liked what Erica said, but I didn't fully understand, so I tried to repeat it back. And right. Yeah, that makes sense to me. In what does that mean for like tactical next steps forward?
So I think what makes the most sense is to have this document or a form of it that's polished be sent to the BOT prior to the work session, and probably not coming to them, because what it sounds like is that we want to present all 3 together to provide context and be like, we're not just doing this in a vacuum, we're doing it all together. So I would say probably, yeah, waiting on bringing it, the 100% renewable amendment as an action item. And like Melody mentioned, that might not make sense this year even, since it's still 2025. So bringing what you have polished to the BOT work session, and then kind of going through points 1, 2, and 3, just as you outline them, would, in my mind, be simple. And then kind of asking them from there what they think makes the most sense for an action item, or, presenting to them and the public in like a discussion item or something.
Yeah, I think at the work session, we'll get a good sense of how they as a board are leaning on approving these goals.
Mhm.
And from there, we'll be able to determine, okay, do they just want to adopt the 25 to 2030 right away? Like give us 6 to 7 months to work on all the other stuff, or do they have the appetite for this right away and they're willing to do it? It could be that too. So.
Did we decide on a date for this combined work session?
Yes. June 17th.
Yeah.
I just got an email earlier today, which is why I said yes like that, sorry.
Yeah, because it got changed.
Okay. Y'all, I have to hop off after this section.
Okay.
But I will be back on to write up the minutes based on the transcript and video. So you can speak like I'm here because I will pick up on it.
Will your note taker stay on? Do you know?
My
Yeah.
note taker should stay on unless you kick it out. And then honestly, the note taker has been less helpful than, like, once the video gets published, it's pretty easy for me to pull that transcript and then condense and then proofread because the intern doesn't always get it right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Enjoy your guests.
Of course, immediate next steps, we're taking a cleaned up version of this, Erica, hopefully with that paragraph focusing on the historical context and with the absence of the erroneous historical rec references to start a discussion during our work session June 18th.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, June 17th.
17th. Okay, great. All right, y'all. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
I can not be there on the 17th. I'm gonna be out of the state.
Could you be virtual, or are
I
you?
could.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, if that works, if that's possible.
That's our next agenda item. So, yeah.
Okay.
Let's just, June 17th is what John just wrote to me this morning. I had never gotten a confirmation about the 3rd anyway, so that's fine. But so who all can absolutely be there June 17th?
Oh, actually,
Tom?
No, I'm sorry, I'll be in New Mexico.
So we'll have to see if Rich can make it and who else?
Patricia,
Someone, okay.
yes, technically through the end of June.
Yep, okay. I had sent back to John that we, as a board, were kind of waiting on a poll of what days might work best for us for a work session, so it's possible that we could get another option besides June 17th, but for now, June 17th is what we've got on the calendar. So if I would say if 1, 2, and Jack are, we're the only 3 that can make it, it's not worth it to have a work session.
Did he say
Do it.
yes?
It sounded like he did at the very end.
Okay, I'll have to double check.
But yeah, if we don't have at least 4 or 5 members there, we want to push it to a different day where we can get most of the people there.
This is hard in the summer. I think we could, no matter what time, we'll we have to get everybody.
Yeah, what is the reason that you think having more people there will help?
Just so that everybody's on the same page, nothing gets left behind. It's been, I don't even know how many years since we've had a work session with the BOT, and it's supposedly supposed to be an annual thing, but it's never really been annual.
Too much stuff going on.
But the last time we had one, it was actually a joint work session with ProSab, SAB, and the BOT.
Yeah, and that one in particular, like, had like plans out on tables in the store, and like everyone walked around and
There's
like
a
talked
lot.
about different plans and different opportunities for parks.
So if that's the case, should we be planning on bringing something more extensive for this goal update proposal that's like PowerPointy or postery?
I don't think so. I think it's good for us to just have a general sense of like, where's the SAB leading for our next set of goals, right? All of our goals are wrapping up here in 2025. What's our next set? This being kind of the main direction we're going, electrification and finishing up this renewable energy thing.
I do wonder about what Erica said earlier, though, is that like they don't have a lot of context or definitions for a lot of these things. And so maybe just like a short presentation about just like the basics and like how we got to where we are might be helpful, just having like a visual aid or something.
What might be helpful is to see if Partners in Energy could attend.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I would, especially if we were able to engage with them ahead of time.
It'd be a few hours long, or do we know how long the work session?
I believe
Like an
it's just
hour?
the 1 hour.
Just
before
1 hour?
DOT.
Okay. Oh, okay.
They only gave us GOT meeting dates as option.
Right, they
Right,
do
it
the
limits that hour.
work session beforehand. Gotcha. So probably it's 6.
And I was kind of hoping John would be here because I'm generally confused about this whole process.
Yeah.
Because it usually goes very different. So, and we're gonna have a lot to talk about. I'm not sure we're gonna cover everything in an hour. I mean, we might need another one. And so if we spend 20 minutes going through a slideshow, you know, that's
Yeah.
a good chunk of the meeting.
I just worry that it might take more than 20 minutes to like explain everything to them if they don't have like a basis and we just get into the weeds and then they're like, wait, back up. I don't know. I just setting like a shared understanding at the beginning might make sense. Yeah, it doesn't have to be 20 minutes, it could be 5 minutes.
Yeah, just because nobody reads the pre-packet, right?
That's the thing, is like we can send it out and send out
I mean, I
definition.
won't say nobody, but it's not a detailed, it's not a detailed.
We're just
read.
like me do,
With
and
the
then,
same-
like, there's like 1 or 2 BOT members that do. They do
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, it's just that like,
Not-
there's gonna be a variety of depth in which it's read.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So just, and then, there's a time to forget it in between now, or whenever they read it and whenever they arrive.
Well, and we'll have to confirm with them that we can get like these things up and running.
I worked
To
with
do
Kurt.
that, to do the presentation.
I met with Kurt and I figured out how to do it. It was just about getting the right chord. Honestly, that was long enough.
Um. Okay. Well, does anybody want to put together a slideshow? Because if nobody wants to do it, then we're not gonna have one.
So it's so the slideshow needs to be put together prior to the 17th of June. Okay, and does it
And
need to
we're
be
talking
read
about
by,
on the renewable energy goal, basically this document in a short.
does it
slide.
need to be reviewed by SAB?
I think if it follows everything in this document and adds nothing
Great,
additional.
then I can do it. I can make, 6, 7 slides.
Wonderful. Perfect.
Somebody should probably remind me, but I'll write it down.
And then the scorecard was, another big topic for that work session. I just kind of copied and pasted some of the main stuff about the scorecard in a document. And I was waiting to hear an official date of the work session before working any harder on it. But I think, Eric and I were gonna get together and kind of make it better. So should we also do some slides on this?
Sounds like not everyone on BOT is up to date on it.
So Erica and I can work on slides for that. But if there's anything additional that folks to have, speak now and or comment in the scorecards document that I sent.
So one of the things that has been top of mind for me is with all the chaos at the federal level, there's been a handful of city council and board of trustees that have made like public statements about their continued support for climate action, environment and DEI initiatives and kind of all these things that have been under attack in a lot of ways. I don't know if that conversation has to happen, but it might just be worth having some space to say like, where is everybody at? How do we feel as a town of Netherlands?
I know from listening to BOT meetings, they've talked about it and haven't really come to an official conclusion other than restating whatever our resolution was about following the climate Paris Accords.
Mhm.
They did end up re-adopting that statement.
We just,
So they
Yeah.
did that. And then as far as doing anything more about DEI, they seemed a little hesitant. So I would say if we have like a proposal of a resolution or ordinance that maybe could go in front of them, and that's a different story. I mean, we can always gauge their interests.
or ask them like, what are you seeing that isn't being done in Netherlands now? Like, what else would you like to see from the sustainability document? We have a bias that we think these are the priorities, but like, what else is of interest to them?
Yeah.
I know, like the AI conversation, right, within like the energy space.
Mhm.
Or Billy is always doing, hers testing and, he lives in that whole energy efficiency space. I'd be curious to hear his thoughts. Or waste diversion, like with Ty, like he's really talking to that world. It might be cool to like have some targeted questions, just to say like, what's top of mind for you? And how do we support?
Do you think there's enough time in the 1 hour to do the energy action statement and plan, the scorecard and this conversation?
I'm seeing it go as like, one, this is the SAB scorecard, this is the process. we're working on updating it. Where does this misalign with any understanding you guys might have of the process? How can we institute this process better, et cetera? We'll have that conversation. And then we'll talk about SAB goals, number one being this kind of renewable energy goal. But I like at the end kind of opening it up to, okay, so SAB is also going to be contemplating our goals once we get our new members on board. What are the things that you would like to see us talk about as we're considering our goals for the next 3 to 5 years or whatever? And trying to get some of their input on that. And that would be given to them beforehand, so hopefully they can brainstorm and bring some ideas to the table.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking too, like, I don't know personally, like where the board is with nature-based solutions. And I know there's a lot happening in Boulder that would be kind of tapped into.
This, I will tell you after the meeting, personal opinion. I can speak as a son.
Okay, that's fair.
Is there any other topics that we would like to address with the BOT? Either in long form or short form? Besides scorecard and future goals?
Cass, I'd love your thoughts on this, but I've just put into the energy document some suggestions about like really looking at that municipal piece for building electrification, but also transportation electrification, because I think there's a lot of low hanging fruit that could support with that for the town operations. So I would be curious about asking, like, where are we with on-site renewable energy? What are opportunities? Like, could we target some of those projects or those opportunities with the Partners in Energy plan? Just using their resources to kind of help do some like basic research.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be definitely like the main thing that I would want to hear from Partners in Energy when we're doing our energy action planning is like, how can we, with our municipal facilities, like lead the way and kind of demonstrate to the town that we're on board with this goal and we're actually trying to make progress as like the town itself. I think the BOT is super in favor of that, just based on like the response I got to the microgrid grant that I don't believe we're going to hear back about, just because I don't think OSED really has any resources at this point from national funding, but they were really on board with it. We just have like no money is what I've heard to put towards it. And so like grants are awesome. Matching grants are not as awesome because they don't really have the money to put towards even a match. So I think like trying to work with Pi on, you know, figuring out and that's the tough part, is just like, where is this funding going to come from so that we can make our municipal facilities run on clean energy. With fleet electrification specifically, I know that in our EV action plan that we did with Partners in Energy, I like reiterated this with them, that like basically every time a vehicle in the fleet is coming to like the end of its life or usable life, we consider replacing it with like an electric vehicle, and just seeing what's out there on the market and like, does it fit within the budget? And kind of the idea is, now that we have the level 3 charger, hopefully like that will be enough if we have 1 or 2 EVs, and then we can start working on like actual fleet charging infrastructure once we have the like basis for that.
Okay, that's great to hear.
Mhm.
Does anybody know what's going to happen with the IRA?
Well,
Direct pay?
direct pay?
Yeah, the elective. Trying to think about the terms, it's been a while, but direct pay like allows a municipality to buy an EV and get tax credits.
Oh, at least residential tax credits in the current proposed budget that passed the house yesterday got ripped. So
Oh,
I'm not sure, yeah, for
Clean energy.
everything from heat pumps to solar and hydrogen and everything, so. Good for 25 though,
It's true.
yeah.
We don't still have a lot of funds. But the direct pay is. to
I'm not sure about
pay-
municipalities if that's handled differently, but if it's through IRA, I think it's getting gutted. Because it's got Biden's name.
So then another question is, so, do you, and I don't know, you might not be able to talk about this, but through the Dr. Cog policy funds, does Netherland have like an initial idea of what they're gonna apply for those funds for?
I believe Britt was talking about staff.
How much, do you know how much Netherlands have been for?
I honestly, in those conversations, Britt's been the one going to the meetings, so I will make a note to like ask if she has an idea on that though.
That could also tie into this like electrification space too.
That's true.
There's also the energy office climate accelerator grant,
Yeah,
and that's gonna be opening this summer too, and that might be what just waits for me. It's gonna be big left, but those buckets could also tie in.
I know that you had mentioned I don't know which meeting it was, but you had mentioned it as like funding for a sustainability plan. And I know that like a huge part of it is policy, like you have to have a policy component. And you can also have like a project component. So if like we were to do, I was thinking I needed to ask like someone on their team if like a sustainability plan would fall under that funding area, especially if we include a lot about like we want to implement policies and then list off, reasonable ones for Ned.
Yeah.
So it's worth looking into for that.
Because, yeah, we're getting what, not only did it for 50,000.
Oh, really? How did you find that?
It's in a report of just like how each of the communities kind of. fared
No
this
way.
fall.
That's cool.
Ward got 50,000 too, so if anyone has anyone in head.
And
And maybe worth
it's,
putting in the article.
well, it's something where it could be beneficial to maybe partner with other communities on a project and both pay in.
Especially if Eldora got separately earmarked.
No, this is just municipalities,
Okay,
yeah.
but
Let me
Ward
con-
is home rule. Do they still count? Apparently they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're at least incorporated.
Yeah.
Let me just confirm.
Yeah,
I
I think that's the difference.
Let me confirm if they got. They just.
But a community-wide sustainability action plan updated that included Ward in their 25,000.
So. Yep.
Yeah, for the
Large-scale
peak to peak
demo.
area.
Iron Springs,
Did it say
Um,
Jamestown?
Yeah,
Jamestown got 50,000 too.
Oh.
But I shouldn't say got, like, these are funds you have to apply for. but
Yeah.
you're being earmarked for up to this amount,
As long as you have a reasonable proposal, you get.
hopefully.
Yeah,
Black Rock also got 50,000, British Open County got 50. So earmarked for that. But as far as your question about that, I think that was a different grant too, so let me. Do some digging to see, was there a separate DOLA grant that was just for climate action planning?
okay, so I've got SAB scorecard, renewable energy goals, municipal energy, and us being a leader on those goals. And then the kind of last conversation of other goals and other feedback from the two.
Session.
So do you know when they vote on the new appointments for the board?
I believe it would happen in June because the application period closes on the 26th. And then the last,
The 26th of May.
oh, sorry, yeah, 26th of May, and then the last like meeting that every board member goes to, that is like their terms ending and say they like didn't reapply or something, they would just go to the June meeting. And then July is when like the new members would start. So I'm guessing June.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, I know they won't be official members until July, but it would be good to invite them to the work session on the 17th. If there's anybody that's new, I mean, clearly, some people might be reappointed, but, so if we could figure out who those folks are before the 17th and invite them, that would be great.
Yeah, I will see on the forecast agenda or agenda forecaster.
Yeah, because if they're doing it on the 3rd, then we would know, but if they're not doing it till the 17th, then they won't be appointing people till after. The work session. So that's the 1st and 3rd Tuesday.
It says June 3rd is the date that they're gonna do the appointments.
Okay.
That being said, if we have more than, I'm not sure who reapplied, but if we have more applicants than spots open, then SAB is supposed to meet and make a recommendation and give that to the BOT. And so like they would probably push back any appointments until the boards meet.
Well, we only have about 4 more days of the application open, so do you know where we're sitting at with applications right now?
Personally, I only have seen one application come in, and I believe there's like 3 or 4 open spots technically. Patricia mentioned that she will not be.
Yep.
So I will need to ask Macy, but usually she doesn't like give me that until the application period's closed.
Yeah, I'm just thinking right now, it's looking like, as far as I know, we just have the folks that are re-upping and then Patricia's seat. So if
Mhm.
there's one application, then there wouldn't be more applicants then.
Yeah, I think we'll just have to wait and see and by the 26th and see what we have. And then we could always hold like a special meeting if we need to for like,
Yeah, to
you
make
know,
a recommendation quickly.
10 minutes, even if it's online.
Yeah, we can send out the application, review them and just meet for 5 minutes to vote on them.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, anything else on the work session stuff? Then we'll end with our sustainability coordinator updates.
Right.
Oh, I do have one other thing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I put this in the attachments and memos folder on the SAB agenda folder in the drive, just so you can access it if you would like to. But for my updates, I just added it so that I could put these in there. But for my updates, RCAB is the Resource Conservation Advisory Board that meets once a quarter and advises the Board of County Commissioners on major waste diversion policies and strategies. I had been attending these meetings and last month was officially made the Nederland representative. So that seat is filled on their board. And then we met recently to talk, or a subset of us met recently to talk about C&D things across the county. And just gave a presentation on Netherlands C&D policy, and there is a lot of interest in creating like uniform policy across the county so that contractors are, not confused by having different things in different municipalities, and also like not really, we're not pitting communities against each other in that way, especially down in the Front Range. And then the biggest concerns were like admin work associated with C&D. So working on, working with planning staff to make sure that like C&D is being handled. And it's not all just on sustainability staff. That was more from like memory, because we just had that meeting this week. But yeah, so not like a whole lot to report for action items on that. For the DC fast charger, the level 3 charger, we finally have it up and running. So that's huge. And it is charging for free, I'm being told. So go get your free charging when we can. And
Yeah, BOT wants to charge you so much.
It's like 60 cents or something. Is it slated to be 60 cents?
because we don't have the software up. And so I honestly have not seen anyone using it. So we're not advertising it as like get free charging. We're just like, it's working finally. And now it's about trying to get the software and then the like charging people the right amount and everything.
Because that's gonna spike.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I'm working with Britt on that, but like that just happened and we weren't even sure if it was going to happen. So
Well, it's only
Well-
150 kilowatt capable charger, right? I think so. So I think it's not gonna be terrible, but it's gonna probably. What else is on that meter?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know if anything else is.
Yeah, for all the chargers on that.
Like we get a bill for the level 2 separately from everything else. It gets its own account. And so I'm wondering if it's gonna be its own account for that too.
Go for the demand charge.
I would bet, yeah.
If they're all charged at the same time.
Yeah.
So I had brought this up to John, and I'm not sure we ever got anywhere with it because our chargers weren't online, is when the BOT passed the fee schedule for 2025 and included the fees for EVs,
Mhm.
they were accounting for the fact that there was going to be paid parking. And so they added on $2 an hour to the EV fee to be a paid parking fee.
Which hasn't been implemented yet.
So I think before we implement any fees in those charges, we need to make sure to adjust the town fee schedule to the actual correct fees without charging for paid parking, unless paid parking is coming online sometime soon. I haven't heard about it.
Not heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I would like to.
I mean,
say
I don't
we
even
get rid
think
of that
Ron's
extra
lots
$2.
are paid parking these days. I've just been parking there, haven't got a
He
ticket
put
yet.
cameras.
Did he?
There's cameras at both entrances. I noticed them yesterday.
I bet you they don't have power because it's just.
No. So I think he's
Yeah,
not gonna
probably not.
enforce anything until your car's there for over an hour. And that's when the policies on his paid parking start to kick in. That's just my understanding from reading the signs and reading his whole everything. It says nothing about the first 60 minutes. So my assumption is that's free.
Okay,
And I have not gotten a ticket.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be a hard row to hoe to like collect from individual community members, like a private citizen charging for parking.
Yeah.
Collecting from individual community or not community members.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it'll be fun.
Tourists pull up and scan that QR code and pay.
Perfect.
So-
That's, I think, the perfect
I think
intention.
it sounds great to me. I have no problems with it. I don't get a ticket, I don't get charged when I park there, cool, I'm happy.
Totally.
But town paid parking, they initially said of maybe doing a pilot during leaf peeper season last year, and then they postponed that, and they said they were gonna start in March or April, and I have heard zero from BOT about that, so I think we wouldn't bring it online this summer.
Yeah,
At least
probably
with like the EV chargers that I work with, you put like a parking fee in. after a certain amount of time to get people to move.
Mhm.
Yeah, or when
I-
the charging session ceases.
Yeah, I think there is that, are intended to be
Mhm.
charged.
Yeah.
So,
So I don't know if the fee schedule got adjusted after I talked to John, but if it didn't, it should.
I will, yeah, I'll definitely ask him about that, because I do not know.
Because people were freaking out about the price.
So
Mm.
is there someone from the company that we bought it from that's working on the software for the EV charger? Or is that Netherlands responsibility?
Thank God, no. Sorry, but the company we bought it from has been so difficult to work with, and like technically is like internationally based. And so like they've just been sending contractors that they work with here up, and they are, yeah, just really difficult to work with. So AES, which
My former employer,
really,
AES Clean Energy.
I think so. Do they do?
This is Allied Electrical Solution. They do EV chargers.
Okay, no, different AES.
Yeah, it's yeah.
My former AES is in Louisville.
Um, yeah, I was told,
Yeah, AES
AES.
Indiana is part of the AES Clean Energy. That's, yeah.
I was told AES is managing the software portion of it with us. I don't know if it's like their software. To be honest, Britt has been the one in communication. But now that like it's up and running, I think I'll take over managing that, since I'm also managing the level 2 charger as well. But so for the level 2 charger, I have some numbers listed there. And you can read them. But essentially, we have seen slight increase in revenue for the level 2 charger, an increase in sessions since the last month, from 74 to 86, and then to almost $340 from $286.
Profit or total?
That is total, yeah, revenue. I am working on a spreadsheet that compares, the cost to the revenue, and determining how much profit we've made, and probably going to discuss that with John and the BOT at some point as well. But the car share has not been in the spot for a long time, and that's because it's long-term rented right now. But there was this whole thing about how we weren't going to do the car share anymore, so we haven't renewed that. We haven't paid anything for it, but Boulder County wants to keep the car share up here. And so they're kind of running that, but now there's concern about like one of our parking spots and our charging spots being taken up by the car share if we're not the ones running it. And then should we tow people if, like, again, is it really our program? So we're gonna talk, I think, more with the car share people about our concerns, and trying to figure that out. But I know that town staff as well as the public have been complaining about the car share having its own designated spot in one of the EV charging spots.
What about just putting it on like a plug-in level 2 somewhere else?
That's the thing, is there's other level 2s around, and so it's like, could we, since Nederland, the town, isn't running this car share program anymore, can they swap it to a different location?
I thought the only issue we had was that we didn't have the level 3 up for people to use as an option, and that once the level with 3 was up, that the car share being there wasn't an issue. That's what I remember discussing.
Mhm.
I would be in full support of keeping it in that visitor center parking lot,
Mhm.
whether or not we are.
I agree,
In
that's
control.
one of the best centrally located positions unless we're talking about putting in new.
Unless we get
Yeah,
some chargers up here, maybe this would be another good spot.
Like the R2D lot,
Yep.
something like that. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I think it's in a great location now. It's probably
I'd fight to keep it there.
And RTDs maybe changed, but I've heard they're really, really hard to work with.
Yeah, they are.
Mhm.
Anything outside of like their umbrella.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would agree, like for multi-mobility, multimodal opportunities in town, and then
Mhm.
it's such a good way to try an EV.
Mhm.
And then I remember years ago, like, it was shared that like most of the people that are using it as a second vehicle. And they're booking it within 24 hours.
Hmm.
So just sounds, I haven't used it myself. Have you guys?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't drive new cars is what I found out.
You're crazy.
All these sensors and dings and lights and everything. My car's not old, but it's the base model, so it doesn't have the cameras and it doesn't have the color radio. It's like got a CD player and radio and all that good stuff.
So basically, SAB consensus is that we do want that spot reserved for the car share because the level 3 is now up and it's not as much of a deal taking up that level 2 spot.
I would suggest rephrasing it a little bit, but
Okay.
I think it's a priority
Yes.
to support and an overall asset for the town and our goals. I also
I don't think somebody.
We are getting the car share for free when we should have paid $9,000. We're getting free access to that. So let's give pro bono back to the county for helping us and say, yes, give them. the
Or
stuff.
like, you could say something like, until there's a better charging option.
Yeah.
We recommend that stays centrally located and look at additional charging options, and those could be. Is that?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think that there's many people who can argue that the utility of them getting 7 kilowatts is worth us not having centrally located Passcode.
For sure.
Especially, I mean, I know
Especially when we have the level
fast
3
chargers more expensive, but
No,
if you're actually trying to get somewhere within the next few hours, that's really the only option.
Mhm. Okay, I can pass that along. For the Cross Gold Mine, honestly, it's the same update as last time, just because I didn't look into that. So I don't have an update there. For the farmer's market, what we had discussed earlier, I might send out an email with this, with a sign up on this, but essentially, we have one farmer's market date that we could do switch together tabling at, and that's June 8th. Unfortunately, it is the day after town cleanup, so if anyone's helping with town cleanup, I don't want to ask you to volunteer the next day for multiple hours, for SAB as well. But if anyone's super enthusiastic, that is an option. If not, I think we have more signups already than last round with Switch Together. So it's also like we're doing pretty well and we don't necessarily need to, do that to get more people, because we already have quite a few.
As long as I could bring my kiddo, I could support at the farmer's market.
Support, okay. I don't think I'm going to do it on June 8th just because I'm gonna be helping June 7th, and then I'm also volunteering with the zero waste thing this weekend. So unless we can get like someone to be there the whole time, I don't think it's worth it.
What is the scope of having a presence there again?
So Switch Together is a program that like runs rounds every spring and fall, and we basically are trying to get people to sign up for group for more affordable solar through like this group buying program, so they get like a discounted price through like an auction that they do, and so we're trying to get them.
But it's not community solar, it's
not community solar, no, it's to install solar on your roof, but yeah.
And it's like with the clean energy tax credits going away in December, like it's a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
and
kind of like the last time, honestly. It's
yeah.
gonna take like 3-4 months to get them installed, so
and
it's
small,
kind of like the next 3 months is when you're guaranteed to still have.
they are accepting small businesses as well, which is new. So I didn't really get a whole lot of information on that. But if it's like a small business that owns their building, then they could put solar in with that. But my guess is probably not going to be tabling for it. Yeah, that's okay. That's kind of what I was thinking. It's not a great date either. With town cleanup. But I'll be sending an email about the waste monitoring, with probably a Google Sheets sign up. And we'll probably be doing a training at Zero Waste Subcommittee meeting in June, which would be June 4th. If I confirm that, I will also send a calendar invite. You don't have to go to that, but I'll make sure that there's like some written up thing that says these are the things you need to know if you want to volunteer for waste monitoring, so everyone's on the same page.
A to Z, A to Z eco-cycle guide.
Yeah, there you go.
All you need to know. Google it.
And then town cleanup, June 7th. 7:30 a.m. is when you need to be there. Is anyone who's present here going to be there? Out of town?
You guys get done.
Ty will be there.
Ty, okay.
I'm pretty sure he said he was.
I do it for a couple hours, maybe. I'd have to
In the morning?
potentially.
Okay,
Was it Rich that said he might be able to help for that?
I can text him.
Ask him.
I'll text him and I'll text Jack since they're not on.
He might be able to too, if I remember correctly from last meeting.
Do you have LED kits left?
Yes, and I'll be bringing those too.
She got more.
It's probably, honestly, because I'm gonna be helping, it's probably just gonna be like a table with like free LED kits and like people will just take them like, okay, yeah. But yeah, like specifically, we need help with the compost, so I'll be working on that. And then we're hopefully gonna get like one other person to be at the compost pile that's knowledgeable.
Kit. Kit. Love them.
I think he's going on sabbatical in June. I don't know that he'll still be around.
You're so scared.
Cinda, anyone on the zero waste subcommittee?
Yeah, I think Cinda said she can't make it.
She's the most reliable one. Yeah.
I could reach out to
Annette,
Annette.
maybe. Uh-huh. She's pretty good.
I wonder if there's anybody from Black.
Maybe Tom.
Yeah.
Howell.
Yeah.
Or anybody from Black there that might be interested in like decent education too.
Yeah, I'll talk to Sam and see if she can reach out to people.
Would you like to volunteer for Trinity?
I can't, it sounds really like actually really fun. I like compost a lot, like
Mhm.
everything about it, but I'll be.
Shoot, okay.
It would be very difficult to be.
Yeah.
It's really sad. I wish that I could like virtually see the dirt. Sounds weird, but I like dirt.
They might have some leftover dirt.
Hey man, save me a jar, please.
And doesn't the transfer station now have a chip wood chip pile?
Yes, because they're putting it into the composting.
Oh, it's
Think-
spoken for, it's not for
I
the.
think so. I don't know.
Street, you can get it there.
There's flash yards right there, yeah. And that's where they're getting it from, I think.
Yeah.
So,
So it's compost adjacent.
It's, yeah, my dad has like 4 compost piles on our property, so it's been in the dirt since I was a kid.
nice.
You should ask your dad. once again.
Yeah.
I hope he's driving me to Maryland.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
there you go.
The 2 dirt lovers of my family.
Mhm.
Perfect day for being in dirt.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well.
All right. Sounds a lot. You got more?
Nope, that's everything for me.
Did we hear back about the DOE grant?
No, I asked Britt because she submitted it with her email and she said no, that she hasn't seen anything.
Okay,
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of people probably got let go there and
Sure.
probably not their priority right now. But
yeah, the original guidance was to receive things early in May. But,
yeah,
I mean, I think the axe is probably gonna come down on that sooner or later, but it would be interesting to
mhm.
take it as far as we can take it.
No, it would be, yeah, I
It'd be
think,
nice to get feedback too. If
Definitely.
It wasn't a great grant, could be improved.
I know that a lot of other grants that like have been awarded, people are having trouble even getting in touch with like people who are supposed to be like administering those.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm figuring like,
Who knows if they're still there?
exactly, they're not operating
Well,
well.
if we haven't heard, by next meeting, you should probably try to reach out to somebody.
Reach out, yeah.
Mhm.
Do any of you have any quotes that you would like to go directly into the paper?
I think if people are excited and interested in sustainability in Nederland and beyond, we would love to see them at these meetings or joining the zero waste subcommittee.
Or even just
applying to the
members
staff
members
board
of the
by
public
May
coming to
26th.
these
Mhm.
meetings,
Yeah.
engaging, yeah.
Yeah. And if they have ideas that they want to bring to this board, we are all ears and just so appreciate engagement
Mhm.
and feedback.
Beautiful. Are there any, like specific dates that you guys do meetings that I could add in?
We are the fourth Thursday of the month at 6:45,
We try to,
usually here,
try to be in person if there's more.
sometimes virtual,
The fourth Saturday,
fourth Thursday.
fourth Thursday, I don't know what day it
Yeah.
is.
All right, who else? You guys have juicy fruit.
Are we, allowed to make a call to action for community members to, reach out to their senator about IRA being potentially defunct through a budgetary bill? No.
Not without BOT approval.
Yeah.
You could as like a member of.
Right.
You absolutely can, as rep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on Netheads. Tell them.
It's been done.
I just have two quick things. One is I just heard back from John. Again, it looks like all of our work session materials, if we're still sticking with that 17th date, and I'll update you if it's not, work session materials need to be ready by 6/11. So just that note. And for Jack, who's.
Yeah.
Um, And then the other thing that I just wanted to note is, June, we get, new board members appointed, July they're seated. And we also typically do board elections at that time. And so that's a great time to review everything we do, how the staff runs, how our meetings run, how agendas are put together. And hopefully we'll elect new folks. Anybody else, wants to consider being a co-chair, that would be great. But if you ever do have an issue with how the meetings are run, how long they're going, anything like that, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. This is a volunteer position, so we don't want to ask too much of you guys. So if something's not working, please let me know. I'm happy to take feedback, and we can discuss or readjust as needed. And that's it.
I would like to preemptively motion that Melody stays as chair for the foreseeable future, just setting the stage.
I will motion that we adjourn the meeting at 8:59 PM.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I
I think that was just delayed.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great night, everybody. Stay safe.
Thanks,
out there.
Tom.
Thanks.